As cliche as this might sound, when we hear this often, but we don't typically believe it, that right there is the perfect poster for anything is possible. When adversity came, I could have fell apart, but I chose instead to follow my heart. When adversity comes, I will never run, I will adjust, adapt, and overcome. Vision. Hello, everyone. Welcome all to your one-stop shop for everything empowerment. I am your host, Tariq Williams, Vision of Hope. But you know what it is. Not only I am Vision of Hope, but we are Vision of Hope. And welcome back to the Speak Your Vision podcast. And we're going to wrap up the whole long intro and everything like that today. Once again, we have an amazing guest that I am so blessed and lucky here to introduce. We have author, philanthropist, mother, Adiba Nelson. Adiba Nelson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, what's up? I feel like we should have like Price is Right theme music. Like that was such an intro.
Da-da-da-da! Da-da-da-da!
Yes. Like I was ready to be like, hey, here's the crowd. Yes. That was awesome. Good morning. Hello.
I guess quick rapid fire question. Favorite Price is Right game?
Plinko.
Oh, that was the right answer.
Plinko.
That was the right
only answer. Hello.
I agree. All right. So we're so happy to have you here today, Adiba, and curious to hear more about you, more about your story, and all the good things that come with that.
I'm here to tell it. Let's do it.
As an author, I know that language and words are important to you. They're extremely important to me. And how I like to start off every episode of the podcast is asking my guest what words describe them. So if you could give me 4 words that explain how you got to where you are now.
4 words. Okay. So I would say it's 2 words. I'm going to call it 1 word because it's a phrase. Scorched earth. Ooh. That's been my thing. Like I heard it the other day, I was like, that's it right there. Scorched earth. Faith. Tenacity. It's another phrase. We're going to call it 1 word. Mm-hmm. Like a little bit of around the way girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. So let's take those words / phrases. I won't hold your feet to the fire and say that that's more than 1 word. We'll allow phrases. We'll allow it.
Thank you.
But let's tell me a little bit about faith, and then we'll come across to all the different words, and then we'll get into some more questions. But why faith?
Because there comes a point in time in your life, I think in everybody's life, but definitely in mine, where that's literally all I had. Like I just had no choice but to believe. Like I ain't got nothing, I can't give nothing, but somehow I'm gonna make it. I don't know what that's gonna look like, but I know I have this purpose.
Yeah.
And so I have no choice but to believe that, like, if God or Buddha or Big Homie, Sky Daddy, whomever is up there, the universe, bless me with this gift of knowledge of purpose, that they're not out here trying to look like a fool and boo-boo the clown by not making sure that I fulfill the things that I'm here to do. Mm-hmm. Even if I don't know how I'm going to get from point A to point B, because I know that point B is part of my purpose, I'm going to get there.
Right.
I don't know how. Like it's faith. You said this is what I'm here to do, so I got to trust that somehow, some way it's going to happen. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
No doubt. I feel that. But I also feel you also define tenacity for us at the same time. Would you agree?
Yes, in the sense that, like, faith is part of tenacity, but also I'm a girl who does not take no for an answer. Like I don't know what no means. Well, no, what? Who? Let me go talk to somebody else. You don't know. You're wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's part like faith. That's part just being a Scorpio. Like you want to tell me no? Dope. Let me talk to somebody else. They're gonna
shout out to all the Scorpios out there.
Shout out to the Scorpios. Y'all already know. I will just keep going. I'll find workarounds. I will go over and above. I will go under and come out the other side, but no, it's just not a concept that I understand or I'm willing to accept. And my mom hated that when I was growing up because I always had a rebuttal. But it's just part of who I am. Like, and I think that's part of what's gotten me this far. If you tell me no, I'm gonna figure out how to do it myself then. So.
Absolutely. Okay. And then let's go to scorched earth and around the way girl. So, but I've never actually heard the phrase scorched earth. So I'm curious to hear what that means to you.
Scorched earth in and of itself just means like the earth has been burnt to the ground. There ain't nothing left, right?
Okay.
So scorched earth. So literally verbatim scorched earth. Scorched, burnt to the ground, earth. Dirt, everything that makes up earth. The beautiful thing about a scorched earth is that once everything has been burnt down and cleared out, new life begins and growth happens. And it's beautiful and it's lush and it's vibrant and it's fertile. But it has to be just like burnt. And I have gone through that in various forms of my life. And I feel like that scorching, whatever that looked like when it was happening, that had to happen for me to be where I am now. So I can't deny that scorched earth is definitely a part of the path that led me here. And I ain't mad at it. I was mad at it when it was happening. God knows I was livid. Like, what is going on? But it had to happen. That path had to be laid clear and barren and just scorched for me to figure out who I am, what I can do, how I can grow.
God's plan.
God's plan.
Shout out Drake.
God's plan. I come through sometimes I won't. Hey, sorry.
I love it. Sorry. Love it. I finessed that Western rope.
Yes.
Oh man. Awesome. Yes. Awesome. You know,
and then around the world. Like, I just say that because like I am who I am. And that is to me, like that's the epitome of an around the way girl. Like she is who she is. Standing at the bus stop, sucking on a lollipop. Like she don't care. She's just out there being who she is.
Right.
That's just me. Like I'm going to be me at any intersection. Ooh, and I'm gonna be me whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So that's just me.
So when you talk about being who you are, whether you like it or not, or to anybody, that's who you are with that drive, that tenacity, faith, all those things coming together, right?
Yeah.
Let's dive in now to now you being an author. Why writing? How did that become something you became interested in and developing into being an author?
So when I was a kid, I always loved reading, right? Okay. And I think my mom's plan kind of backfired. So when I was in like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I would get grounded all the time. And her way of grounding me would be to take away like everything I loved, like TV and radio and like teen magazines and talking on the phone with friends. So the only thing I was allowed to do was check out books from the library. That was my entertainment.
Okay.
But even as like a young kid, I always loved reading and always loved words and spelling. Like low-key fact, I was a spelling bee champ twice.
Oh, okay.
I love words. So when you said, words are important to you, I'm like, yes. But it never dawned on me, like, even though I loved reading books, it never dawned on me that I could make a living writing books. Like I never put 2 and 2 together. And even when I went to college, it wasn't my intention to be a writer. When I initially went to school, I went to school to be a teacher. I was going to be a kindergarten teacher. And then I was going to go from there to being an assistant principal, a principal, and then starting my own school. Like that was my plan. But then I got to college and I found out that you don't actually have to go to classes because nobody cares. And
Well, wait, for those college students watching, go to class.
go to class.
Go to class.
Don't
We're
do
not
what I
spreading
did.
that message here. Go to class.
Do not follow my plan. My plan
Right.
is earth. Like I don't recommend this to anybody. But
Right.
so I maybe went to class sometimes and I maybe partied a lot. And I maybe partied myself out in 2 years. So then I maybe partied for another 5 years. And then I went back to school. So if you are listening and you decide that you're going to follow my advice and like party yourself out, please go back. Like follow that part of the plan.
Right. But there were a lot of maybes there, right? So that maybe might be what happened.
Maybe it didn't, maybe it didn't. I don't know. But I'm here now. So
yeah.
So I went back and I had taken creative writing classes in junior high, loved it. Really wanted to like learn how to like run a magazine. Like I was always obsessed with magazines and writing for magazines. And in my early 20s, I probably had like 7 different magazine subscriptions. And I would literally read every magazine cover to cover and then study the masthead, trying to figure out like who do I write to get to work for these magazines. So I didn't know. I had no one like trying to help me navigate that. Like, if I want to do this, how do I do this? And then when I went back to school, I took a creative writing class as an elective, and I loved it. And the teacher loved my work. And she even said, she's like, you could really write for a magazine. I was like, yeah, I know how. And she's like, I don't know. Like, even she didn't know how to help me get in the door. And so I was kind of like, well, I guess like I just put it aside and I got my degree in social work. But I had always kind of like fiddled around with like poetry was my thing. I started with spoken word and slam poetry. And I was actually on the Phoenix Slam team for a while. I was a semifinalist for like the competition part of it.
All right.
And after I got married and then after I got my divorce, I had started a blog because that was like the thing back in the day. Like everybody had a blog on Blogger and or Blogspot or whatever it was called. And then I had my daughter. And when I had my daughter, unexpectedly, I didn't have her unexpectedly. I'm saying when I had my daughter,
right.
Unexpectedly, I had really intense postpartum depression.
Okay.
And what helped me through it was writing. And so I started another blog because that's what I knew how to do.
Right.
And that kind of helped me through. And as it turned out, I didn't know, but one of my favorite authors was following my blog.
Oh, wow.
And
you never, whatever you're doing out there, you never know who's listening or watching.
Never know. And so she emailed me to tell me how much she enjoyed it. And I was like, wait, is this the same so-and-so who wrote this book and this book and this book and this book?
Wow.
She's like, that's me. And I was like, oh my God. Not to be a weirdo, but I kind of love you. You're one of my favorite authors. And she really graciously ended up giving me her phone number. She's like, if you ever want to talk, like, call me. And so we did. Like, we chatted for a while. And when my daughter was 2, this was after we got her diagnosis. She has cerebral palsy and bilateral schizencephaly and an acute seizure disorder. And after we got her diagnosis, I went looking for children's books where she could see herself represented, because kids need to see themselves in the world, in the books that they read, on shows that they watch, whether any kid. That's how they kind of like foster their early sense of self, value, worth, all of that.
Yeah.
Went to Barnes and Noble looking for a book that would have a little Black girl with a disability, and there was nothing. And I was like, how about books with little Black girls? And this was back in 2011. And they're like, no. I was like, you got nothing? They're like, well, we have this little critters book with like one of their little critter friends is in a wheelchair. And I was like, first
Wow.
of all, my child is not a critter. So let's start
Right.
there.
Right.
There. And then as I was looking through the book, I realized that the book was not about the critter with a disability at all. The book was all about the disability. I could care less about this kid's disability. I want to know about the kid. Like, tell me about the critter. Who is this critter? What is he into? What is he about? Is he rude? Is he a jerk? Is he funny? And
Mm-hmm.
it was all about how the kids could like play with him and da 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 da. And I was like,
Wow.
this is ridiculous.
Right.
So I went home and I kind of like rage wrote a book for my kid. And I was like, it was just for her. Like, I was like, since I couldn't find you a book, I'm going to make you a book.
Right. So
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, before you continue, I love the journey you're taking us on, because you started with your growth and your journey and why writing was even a thing for you, right? And you were getting grounded and got into books. But you made me kind of reflect on my story a little bit, because when I started losing my vision and became blind, that was how I got into writing, because before that, I thought I was going to the NBA. Okay.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
set on, like, you couldn't tell me nothing. All right. I was going to the league. All right. To the
When
league.
those 22 folks that make it was going to be you.
That's it. That's it. That wasn't even a question. Why are we even talking about this? Actually, I'm not even here currently. I'm currently playing for the Lakers.
Of course you are. Of course.
But that was when I got into writing, because I needed a way to express.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I really connect with that, no doubt. But now we're getting into the creation of publishing. So again, you said you rage wrote a book for your daughter. So get into that a little bit more.
So yeah, like I've always said, like I used to say, like, I write for sanity. Like that was my thing. And I rage wrote this children's book in like 10 minutes about this little girl based on my daughter who was disabled, but she was like a little firecracker and had so much moxie, and she was funny and she was silly and she was precocious and just wanted to be a kid. And so she just did kid things. And she had this super fast wheelchair and she would beat all the kids at Duck Duck Goose and play jump rope. And but like any other kid, she needed to be tucked in at night too and wanted to be loved like any other kid. The only difference was that she was in a wheelchair. She had special needs.
Right.
And I used the term special needs because in the children's scope at that time, that was the phrasing that was used. That's what kids understood. And so I used the term special needs in the book. And I wrote it and I showed it to my cousin, and he's like, what are you going to do with this? I'm like, well, it's just for M. It's my daughter. And he's like, no. He's like, you need to publish this. And I was like, you think? And he's like, if you couldn't find a book for your child, how many other parents you think can't find books for their kids? And I was like, oh,
yeah,
right, sir, fair point.
yeah.
So I looked into it. I called agents. I literally like went to the library, got the Writer's Market book, and wrote down all the publishers that did children's books and all the agents that worked in children's lit. And I called them and they all told me no. A few of them actually said, well, one of them in particular said, we don't think the world is ready for a book like this.
Wow.
And that was 2011.
So but before you continue, why do you think they said they weren't ready for it? I know that's a lot of, but yeah.
That's such a question. I got to be real smart and careful with how I answer this because I do have writing contracts now. So I think my agent knows who and how I am, so I'm just gonna say it.
Okay.
I don't think the world will ever be ready to fully hold Black girls and women in the light that they need to be held in. I don't think the world will ever truly be ready to hold Black girls and women on the same plane that they hold white girls and women, and even more so when there's an intersection of our Blackness. So if we're Black and disabled, if we're Black and LGBTQ, if we're Black and Latina, whatever our intersections are, I don't think the world will ever be ready to hold us on that same plane, that same level playing field, because of anti-Blackness and erasure. And I'm just going to call it what it is. And I think in some ways, I can only speak to this country. We're really trying to do better.
Right.
But I think we're still struggling hardcore. I don't think we're anywhere close to where we need to be for this reason that when you think about DEI, people always leave off the A, which is accessibility, which directly affects the disabled community. So you think you're doing better, but you're really not being inclusive or equitable because you're leaving out a whole section of this country, an entire section of this country. And so when people say we're not ready for that, you could be ready if you thought about it in an equitable manner, and then you applied thought and creativity in an equitable manner. But in 2011, that wasn't happening. And because I'm still seeing the erasure of the A, I will say it's still not happening. It's happening. I think people, when they think of DEI A, although they leave out the A, they think of race, they think of gender, they think of sexual identity. They don't think about ability, ever. And so if you're not thinking about it, are you going to be ready for it? You don't even know it's there. You forgot about it.
Right.
How are you ready for something that you forgot about?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. That's
so
yes. So no, but that's so important though, right? In terms of so many things just in general get forgotten in the world, right? And so it's important for different individuals who are noticing, that have a voice, that notice these things being forgotten, to put these things out there on different platforms or what have you, and call things out when they're being missed or when they're incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, as a Black woman, as an Afro-Latin woman, I can't ever forget. I can't take off my skin color, and I cannot take off my nationality, right? My culture. As a mother, I can't take that off. I can't forget about that. As a mother to an Afro-Latin child who is disabled, I don't ever get to forget. Even if I wanted to, society wouldn't let me forget. The world wouldn't let me forget because of all the things that are happening and all the things that aren't happening. So I don't get the luxury of being forgetful, because it's a luxury. It's a privilege to forget. It really is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't have that privilege. I will never have that privilege, and I'll be damned if I die and don't make other people aware of this privilege that they have of forgetting. It's my job as her mom to make sure that this world is ready for her when I'm not here anymore. So this is it.
You touched on some important words there with that luxury and that privilege, but I want to dive back into that tenacity, right? So you rage wrote that book, and there's all these different intersectionalities that are at the table here. And so you rage wrote that book, and you were told, no, absolutely not. We don't want this. Okay. What did you do with that?
I was like, oh, that's what we're doing?
That's what we're doing.
So let me show you who I am. So
around the way.
Hello. I'm a girl from Queens. Like, I'm the epitome. Like, that song that LL wrote, when he wrote that, I literally had extensions in my hair. I had the candy bag. I had the bamboo earrings. I got the bamboo earrings on now. Don't get it twisted. I am still that around the way girl. And so I talked to my cousin who was in art school. He had a friend who was an amazing artist. He's like, she needs credit for a class. You need an illustrator. Link up. Dope. We linked up. I showed her the book. She's like, I can absolutely do this. She illustrated the book. I went on to good old Google and figured out how to self-publish a book. I did that. I found a printer, a local printer, got with them and put a book together, and linked up with Mildred and Dildred, which was a children's toy and bookstore up here in the foothills at La Encantada. Partnered with them to do the launch of the book, and had a big old event, and booked myself onto the Tucson Morning Blend, which is a morning TV show here. Did my
Okay.
very first live television interview. It was awful. Oh my God. I look now and I'm like, oh, poor girl. No one take her away.
Well, we all have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, we started. We sure did.
We all gotta start somewhere. So.
We sure did. Even my mom was like, why though?
Thanks, Mom. Thanks.
Seriously.
Right.
But yeah, we sold I think like 105 books in an hour and a half.
Wow.
And it started there. It started with, oh, you don't have books for my kid? Oh, wait, you don't want this book? I'm gonna give it to you anyway. And that was in 2013 that we launched the book. And from that point to now, I think sold close to 7,000 copies individually or independently.
That's amazing. That's
Don't you know.
amazing.
If you don't want me to succeed, don't tell like go ahead and tell me no if you want to.
So from book 105 to book 7,000,
Yeah.
did you anticipate that type of growth?
I didn't anticipate anything other than I'm gonna do this.
Other than me.
Yeah.
Me will be. That's it.
Me will be. Like either you like it or you hate it. That's it. Like, but I'm gonna be out here doing me. And it took a really long time, even after I launched the book and I had my name on the book as written by, for me to be comfortable calling myself an author. Like I struggled with that.
Okay.
And then after that, I was like, I think I might like to start like actually writing, like try this writing thing out again. And I didn't know the first thing about sales and marketing and hustle or anything when I started the children's book part. And so, like a maniac, I joined Twitter and I made some friends on Twitter. And some of those people happened to write for outlets. And one of those outlets was called the Good Men Project. And one of the editors there that I had become internet friends with invited me to write a couple of articles for her. And I was like, okay. And so I did. It was not for pay. It was literally for exposure. And I did. And that started it. A couple of those pieces got syndicated by like I think Time Magazine and Yahoo and some other places. And that just started me down the road.
Me will be.
Me will be.
Love it. Love it. So as you starting to grow and expand with your writing process and everything, so with that first book, and we'll get we'll move forward here in a second. You said you rage wrote that book in 10 minutes. Was there any doubt in what you were creating at that time?
No, because I didn't really know what I was creating. I knew what I wanted it to be. And it was just like, okay, well, if I'm going to publish this book, then I'm going to make it a thing. I'm going to make a brand out of it. And I make an identity out of it. And this little girl is going to have like the character is going to have like a whole life. And it didn't occur to me then, and it still doesn't pop into my brain now that won't happen. I still very much hold the vision for that brand on my vision board and in my mind's eye. And these, even though that hasn't happened, there have been things that had to happen in that scorched earth path that will lead to that. So I never, when I was writing it, I didn't have the doubts because I knew that it was just I realized at that point that it was part of my purpose. And so even though I don't want to say I've moved away from that brand, it's still my brand. I own it. I still work in that realm. I'm still known for that character. Things that have taken me away from it will only lead me back to it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, everybody's journey is unique, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that, and this is clear with how you speak and what we're talking about, no matter what you do, you're still you.
That
One of my friends talked about this quote, um, each level will require each level you go up will require a different you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have mixed feelings about that quote though, but I agree with it. I'm cool with the quote, but I want to emphasize the fact that you're still you. You know what I mean? Like, even though it may require a different you and you're moving forward through your adversity and the obstacles and whatever that looks like, you're still you. You still have to stay true to who you are as an individual and evolve.
Mm-hmm. I think to expand on what your friend said is that as you move up levels, you're still you, yes, but you're uncovering new parts of you.
Love it. Love
And
it.
so it's a different you that has to show up now.
Yeah.
A you that you didn't know was there before. And
Right.
I've had that experience where I walked out of a meeting was like, what did I just do? Who was that in there? What just happened? Okay, you don't know what's gonna happen now.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, like, my gut was like, this is that time. Like, this is where you level up.
The time is now.
The time is now.
Dun, 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 dun. Shout out John Cena. Anyways, you're absolutely right. So when we're talking about now the expansion and the children's book, and that was in 2013.
That's when the book came out. Yep.
That's when the book came out. Great. And now you have now written another book.
Mm-hmm.
What was the inspiration for that? Ain't That a Mother?
Let me do a little shameless plug. Go
right. Tell us about what started your journey on creating that book.
Funny, the children's book started that journey. Go figure. So I was working with an agent who was trying to sell a children's book, Clarabelle Blue, my children's book, to publishers, because I was like, I don't want to self-publish anymore. It's so expensive and time consuming. I'd rather just work with a publisher and publish it under a house name. And once again, every publisher was like, no, thank you.
That's a no for me, dog.
Literally. Like, all of them were like, pass, hard pass, move along.
Right.
But between the publishing of Meet Clarabelle Blue, the children's book, and the shopping of it to a publishing house, there had been a documentary that was done on me and my daughter. Okay. And that documentary had won an Emmy. And so that documentary was packaged with the proposal for the children's book that got sent out to publishers. So when they would read the book, they'd read the book and then they'd watch the documentary to get a feel of like who I am, why did I write this book, la da da da. So every publisher was like, pass, but has she thought about writing a memoir? Because this documentary was amazing and she had a story to tell. Mm-hmm. And so the agent came back to me and she was like, so nobody wants it. And I was like, surprise, surprise. She's like, but they all said you should write a memoir. Have you thought about that? What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? And what nobody knew, that was, I'd say, in like 2017. What nobody knew is that years beforehand, I had tinkered with the idea of writing a memoir. Mm-hmm. I had written like a couple of opening paragraphs, what I thought a memoir would look like. I had taken a memoir writing class that almost broke me. And so I had been playing around with the idea of writing a memoir. And I
thought about it, dabbling a little bit,
yeah.
But you know. Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, this is how the universe works. You put that, I told you it was going to happen. It's going to slip.
God's plan.
That part. You put that shit out in the air and God's like, oh, this is what we do in dope. Let me put some stuff in the way here. So I had started, unbeknownst to me, that path. I'd started the gears turning when I was like, let me just try to write a little opening paragraph of what a memoir could look like. And then she comes to me years later and she's like, hey, would you be interested in this? And I remembered that I had started this and I'd been thinking about it. And I was like, well, I guess I'm supposed to do this. I guess this is the universe's way of saying now or never. So I was like, yeah, like, I guess, sure, I'll do this. I'll do it. And so she passed me off to her colleague, who is my agent now, who worked in that genre. And so we took a couple of months and we figured out kind of what portion of my life the memoir would cover. Because I'm in my 40s, so it could cover a whole lot.
Right.
And we decided that it would cover my motherhood journey because it's most relatable, really.
Okay.
Like, motherhood is a universal theme.
Absolutely. You know, when I talk about the message I'm trying to bring here on the podcast and on the channel, it's specific to empowerment and overcoming obstacles. I don't typically, I shouldn't say typically, I don't always talk about my vision loss, right? I don't always talk about my blindness.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically try to keep it in that relatable realm for the sake of the fact that everybody has a different obstacle they're trying to get through, you know? And so I do keep it broad, but I do try to connect my own stories with it as well. But in terms of blindness, you know, similar to you, I don't always bring it up because we all have something. We all do.
Every last person on this planet does. Whether or not we own it is a whole different story.
You know, when I first became blind, I talk about it because I was the cool blind kid at high school, right?
Not the cool black kid, but the cool blind kid.
Right, the cool black blind kid. And so what happened was I was satisfied with that. But I wouldn't use my cane on a daily basis. I didn't want to be seen as blind. I wasn't proud of it. After going through my journey, I am now at a place where I am proud of who I am, but I'm no longer satisfied because I know the possibilities are endless.
That part. Scorched earth. There it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you're talking more about now, you created this beautiful work of art, Ain't That a Mother, and trying to have, since you said motherhood is that universal, that relatable piece that you wanted to sell and connect with others, correct?
Yeah, and all the parts of motherhood, parenthood, because there are people who they don't identify as a mother, as a parent, so they're just parenthood. So parenthood, sorry, my computer's making weird sounds, is a universal theme, and there are things within parenthood that we're not supposed to talk about. And I was like, that's bullshit. I'm talking about it. I'm putting it out there. So that's what that is. The good, the bad, and the all hell no.
Right.
That's what Ain't That a Mother is.
No doubt. So for anybody listening and watching here, you know, check out the book to learn all things motherhood.
Yeah, so, you're gonna get a whole lot.
So now we're starting to connect. So you created this beautiful work of art, right?
Yeah.
And now the book is getting ready to come out.
Yeah.
And it's 7 days away. And you're preparing for the launch. And you're getting ready for the book tour.
Yeah.
And you're feeling that thankfulness, that gratitude, that thinking about your journey, where you were with the children's book you created for your daughter. Now you're creating a memoir based upon your life and your journey, and it's all coming together. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of those feelings that week before everything's getting ready to come out and you're getting ready for your book tour. What were the emotions there?
Oh gosh, there were so many. I actually did an IG video where I was like sobbing. So much gratefulness, so much just from the deepest parts of my soul, just grateful. Because so much happened in the span of time that book takes place, right? When I was going through like the hardest parts of my life as a mother, I never, ever in a million years thought that it would lead to this moment, right? You couldn't tell me, okay, we'll get through this, and then in 10 years, you're going to write a book about it, and you're going to go on a book tour. It's going to be great. Like, just understanding all that had to happen, not only in that time span, but in my life as a whole, to get me to that point. I'm going to try not to get emotional here. And the fact that God, and if your viewers don't listen to God, substitute, or don't believe in God, substitute whatever, whomever you want to put in there. But the fact that God saw me fit to tell this story, to take this journey, to bless me with this gift of knowledge, of purpose, to go out and meet people and share my story with them and allow them to share their stories with me. And he trusted me enough to be able to hold that and hold people, while still being my very authentic, sometimes ratchet, sometimes ridiculous self, and know that that's okay.
Right. You know, when you're talking about self a little bit there, sometimes we don't recognize and feel, but specifically recognize that value, right?
Yeah, it still boggles my mind. Like, I think the week leading up to, I was just, the only word was just gratitude. Like, I would call my best friend in tears. And me and my best friend have been best friends since we were 10 years old. So she's seen every iteration of me and vice versa. And she would kill me if she knew I was telling you this. We used to write make-believe stories about us dating like the new kids on the block.
There you go. There you go.
So we would talk about like, how did we get from here? Like, make-believe stories of like me dating Donnie Wahlberg to like, I'm going on a book tour.
Right.
Like, our mamas used to sew our clothes, and now I'm ordering a whole new wardrobe for a book tour.
Right. Right. You know, we don't always realize what's possible.
It certainly did not when I was talking about, oh, I'm going to marry Jordan Knight. Like, did not. Didn't know this was coming. Hell no. Right. Not at all. But I think it was just so much and I'm still filled with gratitude.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and I heard a sentence come out of my mouth that I was like, who are you?
Right.
Like, I got a second book deal over the summer.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And the funny thing is, so I said to my friend, he's like, so how's the book going? I was like, yo, I got a second book deal while I was sitting on the beach in Puerto Rico. And he was like, pause. What? What did you just say to me? And I was like, yeah, I did. And then I was like, oh. He's like, yeah. Like, girls from around the way in Queens and who grew up with their mamas making their clothes don't say, I got a second book deal while sitting on the beach in Puerto Rico.
As cliche as this might sound, you know, and we hear this often, but we don't typically believe it. That right there is the perfect poster for anything is possible, right? That's right, amazing. There.
Yes. And I had to like pause and be like, yo, like, you right, homie. Like, that really just came out my mouth. Like,
you're right.
And I was just sitting on the beach in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, you know, I was on the beach in Mexico or Puerto Rico, excuse me. You know,
my agent just leisurely called me, and I was like, hi, Jeff, what's up?
Yeah, you know, I'll give you guys a call back later.
Right, like, in what world? But that was literally the moment. Like, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's amazing. So
it will and forever, it is and forever will be nothing but immense gratitude. if it were to stop right now and nothing happened beyond this very moment, beyond this interview with you, I would look back and say, yo, look at what I did.
Yeah.
I wanted to do more, but maybe God said, nah, this is cool. In your next lifetime, you'll do more. I'm not tempting you. Do not do that, Lord. Let me do this.
Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going.
These are hypotheticals, God. These are hypotheticals. But what I'm saying is I can look back and be like, wow, like you may not have changed the world, but you might have changed some lives in these last 10 years. And I can be proud of that. And I can be grateful that I was entrusted with that.
You let me be happy. You let me be great.
That part. But there's still, I'm not done yet. I got more work to do. There's more Adiba. Sorry, folks. You're going to get it.
That's it. That's it. To be continued, you know?
Yes.
I'm a big sports person. I like this reference. So when people talk about the reference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James, who's better, somebody said this, you know, we can't completely compare it yet because LeBron's cement's still wet.
Yo.
So you know, it's still being created, it's still being formed.
Yes.
And now you're 7 days away. You went on this, you have this immense gratitude for what's happening in your life, and you're reflecting on your journey, and so grateful, so much gratitude. Now, I watched your IG lives, and you sounded a little bit tired after the book tour. I'm assuming there was a lot of energy, a lot of things happening there. But there was one word that stuck out to me, and it made me think of a personal story for myself. Okay. But I want to get to you. So you mentioned a bit about putting yourself out there on the book tour and how you're getting ready to head to LA. And now, you know, you just felt that gratitude, that excitement, and you thank people for even being able to feel vulnerable. Wow. Tell me about, one, feeling vulnerable in those moments, but two, feeling comfortable even recognizing being vulnerable.
Vulnerability will save your life. When you allow yourself.
Can you repeat that again? I want to make sure everybody heard that, and then I want you to go more.
Vulnerability will save your life. It 100% will. And here's why I say that. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you allow people to see you, not the you that you present for the world, not the you that other people have created in their minds of who you are, but you, all the things that make up you. That allows them to tap into a piece of their own humanity. When people tap into their own humanity, they develop this thing called empathy. You develop empathy when you allow for yourself, when you tap into that vulnerability. The phrase that I should have known no longer exists because you don't know what you don't know when you don't know it. So that vulnerability can save your life and it can change your life. But what I'm saying is, like, vulnerability can save your life in very literal terms. It can save your life from yourself. If you go and talk to somebody because you're having these feelings, that can save your life.
Yeah.
Because you've now gotten it out of your system.
Right.
And I think an even better illustration is my therapist. She always says to me, look, if you need help, it's your responsibility to ask for help. And I'm like, yo, but like, I don't do that. And she's like, if you were drowning, if you were out in the middle of the ocean and you lost your life vest, you're tired of treading water and you're drowning.
Right.
You see ships out there and you see planes overhead. Are you going to worry about making a fool of yourself to get someone to help you? Or are you going to act to ask until somebody sees you?
I'm trying to save my life.
Right.
What you talking about?
About? She's like, you're not going to care about how you look. You're going to be vulnerable as hell and be like, yo, homie, help me here.
Right.
Like,
right.
Life. That is life. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to look silly, to look dumb, to feel insane sometimes.
You know, I don't want to necessarily say that I was forced into vulnerability, but when I became blind, I didn't know what was happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to the doctor's office and going through the eye test and everything like that the very first time, because there were quite a few eye appointments. But I remember him telling me what was happening, right? And I'm sitting there, my mom's listening, he's telling us what's going on, setting up another appointment for the next day to go to Philadelphia. um I go to the bathroom and I start crying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want anybody to see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because quite frankly, I recognize what my family, what my mom, you know, everyone, what they've sacrificed for me, you know, in so many different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want them to feel like I was letting them down.
Mm.
So, you know, I had my few little tears in the bathroom, wiped them off, like, all right, you know, it was now it's like 9, 10 o'clock at this point, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, it was, I want to say it was a Wednesday. And so it was still a school day. I was like, all right, cool, let's go to school. And my mom still took me to school that day. And I went in, and then reality even started setting in a little bit more, right? I immediately, and I couldn't hide it. I just was, I was a little bit overwhelmed. And I don't even talk about this ever. And a lot of people might not even know about this. Um, I was overwhelmed and I just started crying in the hallway. People were asking what was going on. And I was in 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And the one teacher that I trusted, and at that time, our high school actually only had 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Our freshman year was actually in the middle school at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got to the school and I walked directly to my English teacher's classroom. I think students were there. I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't tell you. But I was really close with her, and she was at that time the person who I trusted in the school. And I just asked her to talk, and I just cried on her shoulder.
Mm.
And I let it go. I let it out, and then and believe it or not, after that, I just was like, I had that vulnerability. We had that moment, but I was ready to move forward after that.
You saved your own life. You're vulnerable. Because imagine if you hadn't done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you had just let those feelings build and build and build and build and build inside of you. How damaging is that, right?
Right.
Not only to your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, but you didn't do that. You allowed yourself to be vulnerable, and you literally, in more ways than one, saved your own life that day. Like I tell people, like vulnerability can save your life. It can be the hero. And I said that when I was doing my talk at the Smithsonian. And afterwards, I didn't know, but the security guards had lined up in the back of the room to hear my talk. And when I was leaving, one of them stopped me and he was like, probably like 75 years old, little black man. And he stopped me and he said, ma'am, I need to tell you something. And I was like, oh, did I take something? Like, I don't have anything. I didn't do anything. What's up? And he goes,
Right.
I heard your talk. I was standing in the back of the room. He goes, I've been on this earth a long time. And what you said about vulnerability being the hero, he said,
Yeah.
I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
75 years old and no one ever told me that. And I needed to hear that. Thank you. And I was like, oh, like this man has been on this earth for 75 years. You know, he's lived through some shit.
Right.
No.
Right. No doubt.
And that's where that gratitude comes in. It's like, God put me there. Me, this Black woman who hasn't lived through any of the things he's lived through, put me in this room with this man for him to hear those words that no one had ever said to him in 75 years.
Wow.
That means he lived through Jim Crow. He lived through Reaganomics. He lived through George Floyd. He's seen it,
Mm-hmm.
right? He lived through MLK. And in 75 years, no one ever told him it was okay to be vulnerable, that it could save his life. Like that, I was like,
you know, and that's why that word stuck out to me on your IG live. You know, we didn't even, I just was like, that word right there, vulnerable. So many people are afraid to be that, feel like they can't be that. And it's important to recognize that it's okay.
mm-hmm.
And for
Also,
anybody who's listening right now, recognize, understand, if you take anything away from this, being vulnerable is okay.
I think people are afraid that if they tell their deepest secrets, the most embarrassing things about themselves, that people are going to look at them differently, or they're going to be the only ones out there. I'm here to tell you, homie, you are not a unicorn. You are not a unicorn. If you've done it, if you experienced it, 9 times out of 10, 25 other people in this world have as well.
You know, so often, and real quick, I just have to say this. Shout out Mrs. Fools. You're amazing. Thank you for being there for one of my most vulnerable moments. Thank you.
Mrs. Fools!
Thank you. Thank you so much. But aside from that, I can't tell you how often I teach and work with blind kids that think that they're the only blind kid out there. It's really interesting. And so we have summer programs that we work on that are with blind kids, and these blind kids go back to their parents and like, Mom, Dad, can you believe that there's other blind kids like me that exist?
Like, no, son, are there really?
Right. It's interesting, but you know, it's a journey for the parents, for the kids, for everybody, and so we all go on this journey to learn and grow, and that's why conversation like this one are so important. But not only that, conversation with others in your daily life, right? And taking those conversation to evolve, right? That scorched earth speaks to that vulnerability piece, right? But not losing your authenticity, not losing your tenacity, because you recognize that you have goals and things that you want to accomplish and go through, and figure out the plan from there. Figure out the plan from there.
Exactly.
So Adiba, tell me, because you do so many things. All right. I was thinking about going down the list, and I was just like, you know, that might be a 2-hour long podcast by itself. But but with you know, being a mother, and then your writing, your passion, and wearing several different hats, and finding time to make time for you, right? With all those things combined, you still find time to make sure that you're giving back to the community. So tell me, what are some, I don't know if you want to go through all, but what are some or a few of the communities that you always work on volunteering with, and why is giving back so important to you?
Well, I'll start with the second part of your question first. Giving back is so important to me because I didn't have a lot growing up, and people gave to us. And people need, right? Like, people will always need. I needed, my mom needed. And so why wouldn't, like, the concept of not doing it just never entered my mind. Like, that's, why wouldn't I? If someone felt so moved to help me, how could I not pay that forward? Like, it just, I don't know. It's just, I don't have an answer of like, why do I feel like need to? Because it's the right thing to do. It's because people need help, because people need resources, because people need to know what they don't know.
Right.
So that they don't have to be in the same positions that my mom and I were in when I was a kid. Right. So I do work within the community. I sit on a couple of boards. I sit on the family advisory board for my daughter's clinic, where she gets all her therapies and sees her primary care physician, so that I can help other families who are maybe new to the disabled world, or bring resources and events and whatnot. And then I also am on the board of the Children's Museum. And I'm on that board specifically because when my daughter and I first started going to the Children's Museum, I quickly realized that there was not a whole lot of exhibits that she could interact with because they weren't accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to my girlfriend about that, who was on the board. And she's like, you're absolutely right. I'm going to talk to the executive director about you joining the board. And so I had a meeting with the executive director. I was like, look, I'm just going to be very honest with you. I'm going to keep it real. This has been what I've experienced at the museum, and this is why we don't go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we need you on the board.
Right.
We need someone with that perspective. And so whatever organizations I join or I work with, they always have to be aligned with my values and my vision,
Yes.
and purpose, and my mission.
Yes.
And so they're either going to be organizations that work towards helping mothers, helping people who are less financially able, or the disabled community, or the Afro-Latin community. It's always going to be in that vein, because those are the things, those 4 or 5 things are going to be the things that need to be in place when I'm no longer here for my daughter.
Right.
And for people who are like her. So I will always put my energy into those things. So like right now I'm doing the dance competition with the diaper bank. The diaper bank provides incontinence supplies for parents who need diapers for their kids who can't afford it, the elderly who are on fixed incomes and have incontinence issues. And I'm a parent. I have a kid with a disability who needed diapers when she was little and could not afford them. And I had to decide between food and diapers often, right?
Yeah.
So, and I remember growing up, maybe not always having the money for pads, not always having the money for a tampon. So couldn't go to school because what am I going to do? Like, you don't want to be in junior high and having accidents. And so it's important to me to like support an organization that is helping solve those problems, right?
Yeah.
I work with the Dunbar Pavilion, who works to uplift and support the Black community here in Tucson. I'm a Black girl. So everything I do is to try to leave this place, world, earth, Tucson, better than how I found it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Common quotes that I try to live by, try to stand by: be the change you wish to see in the world. And something to be here, something that's lasting after I'm gone, and listening to what you're saying, Adiba, and that importance of giving back, it speaks to the not only you creating a legacy, but you are a legacy. Yeah, it's some amazing things that you're doing. So
I will take that. I'm going to shirt now that says legacy. That's it.
yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
absolutely. It's amazing to hear, and we've only really scratched the surface. I feel, in terms of your journey and the empowerment that you just display for everybody. And when you talk about that vulnerability, that gratitude, just different words here, different language that I would say need to be on our minds on a consistent basis to make sure we don't lose sense of self.
Right.
With that being said, when people watch this interview and people listen to this podcast, what, if anything else, what are some of the things you want to make sure they leave with?
That's a great question. What are some of the things that I want people to leave with after they listen? It's okay if it all burns down. It's going to come back better.
Phoenix.
That part. Leave this place better than how you found it. Please do the work to leave this place better than how you found it. Even if that's just healing yourself. Healing yourself has a ripple effect. That ripple effect helps you leave this place better than how you found it. Life is what you make it. And I used to hate when my mom would say that because she would always say it. Oh, she would always say it. But it's true. It is very true. My life could have gone any other way than how it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I was determined that it wasn't. And I didn't know how it wasn't going to be some other way, but I knew it couldn't be. It just couldn't be. In the book, I talk about one of the hardest parts of my life as a parent, and where I almost gave my daughter up for adoption because I just wasn't hacking it as a parent. I couldn't provide. And I did not know. That was one of my scorched earth moments.
Yeah.
And there was this song that kept popping into my head by Mary Mary. And I kept hearing that song in my head. I would wake up in the middle of the night with that song playing in my head. And I think that was part of like, okay, I don't know what this is gonna look like. I don't know what any of this is gonna look like. But I have to believe that even at like this dark, dark moment where I have to believe that somehow this is not where my story ends. I cannot go out like this. Call it prideful, call it whatever you want to call it. But I was not going out like that. That was not how my story was going to end.
Right.
And if you're listening to this and you find yourself at this moment in your life where you're like, I don't know what the hell is happening. I don't know how I'm going to make it to tomorrow. You just have to believe, like, talking to yourself, yo, homie, we ain't going out like this.
Right.
This is not how it ends. Absolutely not. This ain't it. This ain't it. This ain't it.
I don't know how this is going to finish. I just know it's not going to finish this way.
This ain't it. The book does not stop here. No.
Right.
No.
No
and
doubt.
If you subscribe to a higher power, whatever your higher power is, trust and believe that your higher power is not out here trying to look like a fool. That ain't it. So just know, like, you might not know how you're going to make rent. You might end up in a shelter, but that's all for a plan. There's a plan. This ain't how your story ends, and your higher power ain't trying to be out here looking like Boo Boo the Fool. Keep going. Just life is what you make it. Just keep at it. I don't know what happens next month.
Right.
I have no idea. But I know God's not gonna be out here looking crazy.
Right.
I'm not trying to look crazy. Like, I'm cute. I'm not doing that. No, absolutely not.
Gosh, continuing to run through my mind as we're talking. Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
When Kevin Garnett won his championship in the league, he said something like, anything's possible.
It's true, though.
It's a great moment. So, last question. As we started, as we're about to end, language is super important to me.
Yep.
Give me one word. Give me one word.
All right.
That will speak for your future and moving forward.
You want one word? Now all I got is like a phrase. So what you said, that words can't be phrases. So I'm gonna use a word that like defines the phrase, but I'm gonna tell you my phrase was much better than this word. Luminous.
Luminous. Okay.
But I wanted to say bright as hell, homie. That's what I wanted to say. Since you said the word, I had to be all eloquent. So it's luminous.
Well, you're an author, so I wanted to, challenge you. So
yeah.
But luminous, that's neat. And why luminous?
I mean, hello, look at me. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Because I know my purpose. I know why I'm here. So even if it doesn't happen tomorrow, and I know that there are some things coming down the pipe that I can't tell you about.
Right.
But it's gonna be bright as hell, and it's just I feel so honored and grateful and just proud that I've been chosen to do this work. That I've been chosen to part of the work that's being done in this vein. There's a lot of pressure that comes with it, more than just social pressure and financial pressure. It's like, I don't want to let the universe down. Like that's a big weight, but I'm excited about it. And I can't wait to see what's on the other side of it. I can't wait to meet the me that is in that luminous world. Because that's a new Adiba too, right?
Right.
So
right.
I'm excited, like bright as hell.
And your reasoning for your purpose and everything like that. So I'm gonna get ready to wrap this up here. But I'll end this with one last Drake quote.
Do it. Do it. Give me champagne poppy.
Know yourself, know your worth. And with that, thank you so much, Adiba, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I love your energy. So many great messages were brought today. So just so much gratitude towards you for taking your time and energy to be with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I did not curse. I told you I wouldn't do it. I didn't drop any MFers. I kept it clean. Your mama can watch this. Your mama.
Oh gosh, everybody, thank you so much again for watching. And remember, not only I am Vision of Hope, but we are Vision of Hope. Have a great day, everybody.
Deuces.
When adversity came, I could have fell apart, but I chose instead to follow my heart. When adversity comes, I will never run. I will adjust, adapt, and overcome. Vision.